So about a week ago, you guys asked me to compare the Surface Laptop 3 to the Dell XPS 13, but a lot of you also asked me to compare the XPS 13 to the Spectre X360. So this video is for those of you who asked. I hope this answers all of your questions. Now, the big difference between both of these laptops is that the Spectre X360 is a convertible tablet. Like, you can take it, flip it around, use it as a tablet. You can buy the HP Active Pen, draw on it, sketch on it. You can even put it in a tent mode and consume media. You have more versatility with this, so depending on your type of workflow, this might suit your needs better, whereas the Dell XPS 13 is more of a traditional laptop. Form factor, very similar. 2.6 pounds for the XPS 13 compared to 2.85 for the Spectre X360. Now, the port situation is definitely better on the Spectre X360. The XPS 13, you only get 2 USB Type-C ports, which happen to be Thunderbolt 3, and you get a micro SD card slot. You don't get anything else. Whereas the Spectre X360, you do get 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports, but you also get a micro SD card slot, a switch to turn off the camera, and a regular USB-A port. Now, my biggest complaint about the port situation is that the HP Spectre uses this like opening mechanism, and I've already broken this one. I had to like pry it back in, but this is the second HP laptop where this thing has come off quite easily. HP really needs to stop using these. I understand why they're doing it. This is a very chiseled edge and it's very thin, but it is a very finicky and easy thing to break. Now, internally, they're the same. Like, you have the only upgrade being the SSD. This one has an Intel Optane drive. It is a bit cheaper, so you get more space for the same price, but it's a little bit slower than the M2 NVMe SSD that's inside of here. RAM, CPU, GPU, even the Wi-Fi card is all soldered onto the motherboard. Battery life is better on the XPS 13. 15 hours and 27 minutes doing productivity like office work with some idle time, compared to 9.5 to 10 hours on the HP Spectre X360. Now, as I mentioned in my previous videos, the XPS 13 is using a killer Wi-Fi card, so speeds are slightly better on the Spectre X360. Display though, both of these are full HD, and both of them have beautiful displays. Like, color gamut and brightness are very similar between both of these. The only advantage is that the Dell XPS 13 is slightly more color accurate. I doubt most people will notice since the delta average is below 2, but if you want to nitpick, the XPS 13 has the slightly better display. Now, the HP Spectre X360 has the Fingerprint Scanner on the bottom, whereas the XPS 13 has it embedded into the power button. You do have Windows Hello on both of these for facial recognition, so you have 2 ways to log into your computer using biometrics. Now, the big difference though is that even though both of these laptops have super thin bezels, you have to ask yourself if you prefer 16 by 10 on the XPS 13 compared to 16 by 9. 16 by 10 gives you a bit more vertical space at the cost of width. Whereas if you're more into content consumption, watching movies and TV, you'll probably prefer the display on the Spectre X360. The other thing to note is that the X360 is a touchscreen and you can draw on it, which means you're gonna have a glass screen and it's quite glossy, whereas the XPS 13, you have the option to buy it with a matte display. You can tell the difference right away. Like, the Spectre X360, you can see reflection of the camera, whereas the XPS 13, you just can't. Now, I did a sound comparison in my previous video. The balance, the sound spectrum is a bit better on the XPS 13. However, you will notice the highs to be a little bit cleaner on the Spectre X360. Now, performance is super interesting because the model of the HP Spectre that I have here is an i7 processor, which means it should on paper be faster than the Dell XPS 13. However, based on the benchmarks, based on everything I've tested, the i5 in this XPS 13, because Dell allows it to run a bit hotter, performs better than the Spectre X360. This goes for compiling code. This goes for PC Mark bench test, which is better on the i5 in this computer. And this even goes for an external GPU. If you're planning on hooking these up to an external GPU, all 1.76 of you, the Dell XPS 13 does a better job. There's no drop frames, it runs beautifully. It just has great frame rates overall. Now, fan noise on both of these machines are very similar. They both get over 40 decibels. Heat management is very similar. Keyboards can get close to 50 degrees Celsius, which is fine. As long as it's not over 50, I'm happy. Both of these computers can also thermal throttle before the power limiter kicks in and reduces the temperature of the CPU. Like I mentioned, Dell lets their laptops run a bit hotter, therefore you're gonna get better performance on this guy. If you're worried about coil noise or coil whine, I didn't find it to be present on either of these laptops. Keyboard, this is quite interesting. HP has significantly improved their keyboard, and based on my personal subjective typing test, I was actually typing faster on the HP Spectre X360. However, I do like the keys better on the Dell XPS 13. They're closer together, they have more of a tactile feedback. Touchpad. Thank you, HP, for not using those awful Synaptic drivers anymore. It's now using Windows Precision. It is so much better. It's a great touchpad. However, the one on the Dell is better. There's just more space to move your hands around, and I found it a lot more natural to use than the one on the Spectre X360. So here are my closing thoughts. The Spectre X360 for the i5 model, which is the same version I have of the XPS 13, retails for $850. That is significantly cheaper than the $1,250 you'd have to pay for the XPS 13. If you're looking for the best value and you're very price conscious, you'll be fine with the Spectre X360. You'll save a lot of money. You can even upgrade it to have better internal components, and therefore you might be happier with the purchase. However, the Dell XPS 13, I think personally, is a better laptop. The craftsmanship's better, it has better battery life, it has a slightly better display, a better keyboard, the carbon fiber deck is super nice to the touch, but it comes at a premium. And if you think that premium's worth it, then you might be okay paying the extra money. But if you're looking for the best bang for your buck, I honestly feel the X360 is where it's at. I hope that answers your questions. If you guys have any more, let me know in the comments down below. Let me know what you want to see for the next video. I have tons of content coming out in the near future. Nothing can slow me down. So like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next video.